meeting. So I'm going to start that. So oftentimes you might need to raise an hourly rate. If you need to do that, you can do so on the job requisition process. There's going to be a place where you can confirm the hourly wage in creating the job requisition. Or if you've already hired a student and you need to raise their hourly wage, you just reach out to Beyond Barnard and we can make that change for you on the back end. If you need to hire a student for a stipend position, the process is pretty similar. You can go through the job requisition process if you don't know who you're hiring for that stipended position. But if you've already selected who you're going to hire, you can do the direct hire process by creating a position and then hiring the student into that position. And it is important to note that any student receiving a stipend needs to have a hire in Workday. Otherwise, we can't process their payment. So the student employment lifecycle is pretty standard. It starts with recruiting students, so figuring out who you're going to hire, and then hiring the students, either by using the direct hire process or moving them forward in the job requisition. Onboarding students, so after they've been hired, students will need to complete paperwork if they've not worked on campus before. This includes an I-9, W-4, WTPA, and most of these forms can be completed in Workday. Students will need to come into the Beyond Barnard office to verify their I-9 with ID documentation. After they complete onboarding, the student should be set to enter time or have their payment submitted. So if they're an hourly student worker, they'll be entering time in a timesheet in Workday. If not, then after they've been hired, you'll submit a request for stipend via our Beyond Barnard Google form. And that Google form, I can send that out to anyone who needs it. And then it's pretty straightforward from there. We process the payments on the Beyond Barnard end.
Going well.
Process the payments on the Beyond Barnard end. And then from there, the payments are submitted to the payroll department and they will process those payments and deliver them to the students at the method of payment that they have selected, either through direct deposit or by check if they haven't signed up for direct deposit. And then once a student is done with their work, they'll need to either be terminated or have their job ended. A student is terminated if they only have one position or if all of their positions on campus are ending. And if they have multiple jobs and only one job is ending, we use the task end job to end their job on campus. So let's talk about direct hires versus creating job requisitions. So the direct hire process is probably what a lot of folks are accustomed to. We use the Workday task create position. And the Workday task hire student to do this. And I will actually jet on over to the Workday platform. So to do so, just type in create position into the search bar. Make sure your supervisory organization is selected. And then fill out all the necessary information to complete the hire. and then you'll hit submit. After that, you'll confirm, Workday will pull up another screen to confirm the compensation. And then it'll pull up another screen to ask you where that compensation is going to be coming from. And so it's necessary to have your account numbers handy. That way, all right, it's necessary to have your account numbers handy. That way, um, you can very easily enter that information into Workday. Um, oh, I will also go over the task hire student. So again, we look up these tasks in the Workday search engine, and they come up. Let's use student Giselle as an example. So when we use the hire student report, it first pulls up, and I'm not actually sure why it's not showing the hire button here, but it'll show a report of all of the jobs that the student has on campus at the moment. And then it'll give you the option in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen to either hire the student or add a job if they already have a position on campus. Next, we have the Workday task create job requisition. This is a task. So job requisitions create the position for the student to fill the seat for the student to fill. And it also allows you to post the job to the student job board. You can copy details from an existing job requisition, sort of as I mentioned before. So if I wanted to use the Beyond Barnard student assistant position, I could copy details from that and it would populate the job requisition. I could use this for an existing position and find one of the positions that I've already had in the past to recruit for something that's already open, or I could create a new position entirely and this way have one or more openings for a student to fill the seat on campus. And if I click OK, it'll populate the details from the existing job requisition that I had from before. It'll ask me for a job description summary, job description, skills and qualifications, and lots of other specific details to fill in, location and things like that. And this is an important screen that we'll come back to in a second, but this is where you enter your costing information. So I'll go back to the presentation. So again, you can copy details from previous job requisitions, like I mentioned before. So the approval process for job requisitions, if you are hiring for staff, it would be a little bit more complicated, but for student workers, the hiring manager will initiate the create job requisition process. It'll route to Beyond Barnard for approval. And then it goes back to the initiator or the hiring manager to then post the job. So don't forget to post the job after you have created your job requisition, because otherwise students won't see it. Yes. Oh, and a quick tip actually for posting the job, when you're looking for the Barnard Student Job Portal, under the options that it gives you, it's important to look under the category internal non-worker, because that's where this Barnard Student Portal is. There's not a way for me to show you that, but I just wanted to point that out so that you can take note of that and look for it when you go to post your jobs. So let's talk now about hiring new versus returning students. So I will actually pull up a job requisition that I have open right now. And so when I go into my job requisition, I have the option to review candidates. And as you can see, I have two candidates that I've already hired into two of the three openings that I have, but I have another one. And if I wanted to move forward a student, all I would have to do is select move forward. And then I can select which step I want to move them forward to. So we have screen, interview, and reference checks as options, but we don't typically use those for student workers. Um, and so I would select the offer step and then hit OK to send an offer to the student. That student would then accept the offer, and then we can move them forward to the higher step of the business process. You can also use the workday task hire student or add additional job, as it may be, but you would type hire student into the workday search bar to hire a student directly into a position. If it's a position that you don't have a job requisition for, but you've already created it, you would look under positions without job requisitions. If you have a job requisition and you have a student that didn't apply, or you just didn't want to go through the offer step, um, you could look under positions with job requisitions to find the position that you're trying to hire that student into. And then don't forget to disposition the remaining candidates. So we get a lot of applications to positions in Workday, and it's important to let students know when they haven't gotten the job. That way they can move on and everything's clear and well communicated. So be sure to disposition those remaining candidates. You can do so by simply checking the names of any given students and then hitting decline, and then message options will populate that you can use to send to candidates. You can also email the candidates directly yourself if those message options aren't what you would like to use, but we do recommend dispositioning your candidates in some way so that they know what's going on. So the overall process, a student applies to the position, hiring manager reviews the student's application, hiring managers move the candidate forward to the offer step, and the hiring manager initiates the offer. While that's happening, you're getting approval by the budget manager, and then a hiring the offer letter will then be generated and will route to the candidate for review, where they can accept. And then after they accept, it'll come to the HR partner or Beyond Barnard to then process the hire. So compensation changes. We recommend a minimum wage of $16 an hour if it's in your budget to do so, in accordance with everything going on and prices for everything changing. Beyond Barnard is moving to $16 an hour, and we encourage everyone to do so if you're able to. Compensation can be set when the job requisition is created. So when you're creating your job requisitions, that is when you can change that compensation. And then, but then if you need to change compensation for a student after they've been hired, you just need to reach out to beyond Barnard, because managers don't have access to request those compensation changes yourselves. But beyond Barnard can make those switches for you. So just reach out either by creating a case in Workday with the case type Beyond Barnard Student Employment, or emailing beyondbarnard@barnard.edu, and we can make that change for you. So hiring for stipend positions, like I mentioned before, Workday requires all students to be hired in a role on campus in Workday. Otherwise, their pay cannot be processed. And once a student is hired in Workday, you can process their stipend request via this Google form. It's pretty standard, straightforward. It's got some guidelines that you can read over when you get ready to submit it. You'll enter the student's name, their ID, their Barnard ID, their email address, the department, the student's position title. It's important for us to have the account number that it'll be paid from so that we can make sure it's costed correctly, the total amount of the stipend. You'll select whether or not it's a one-time payment or period activity pay. One-time payment is one lump sum payment that is delivered on a specific date to the student. Period activity pay is multiple stipend payment or multiple payments over a period of time to complete a full stipend payment. These period activity pays have to be consecutive payment dates. So you can't have a monthly or bi-monthly period activity pay. It has to be every 2 weeks. Then you have the option to select what date you would like the one-time payment to be paid on, or if it's period activity pay, you'll just write in the dates that you would like the stipend to be spread over from start to end. And then keep in mind that students will need to complete onboarding if they haven't done so already. Then you'll submit, and we'll receive it in Beyond Barnard, and then be able to process that stipend for that student. So now getting into budgets and costing allocations. First, what is a costing allocation? It's Workday's way of knowing exactly where the money is coming from for any given position that a student holds on campus. And you let us know whether or not a costing allocation is necessary when you fill out the split costing questionnaire. It asks 3 questions. First, will the position expense be split between more than one cost center? And then you have the option of designating percentages. You have the question, will the position expense be temporarily expensed at 100% to another cost center? Or will the position be expensed in full or partially to any program, gift, grant, or project? That last question is one that is really important and pretty typical for lots of supervisors, as we have lots of grants and programs, gifts, and projects that need to be applied to students' positions. And so if any of these questions apply to you, you'll need to check yes on that questionnaire. That way finance knows to apply a costing allocation. And as a note, the finance department, so Omar and team, are the ones who apply costing allocations. Yeah, and so keep your account numbers handy so that when when you get this costing questionnaire, or when a team of a member of the finance team reaches out asking for your account information, you have that readily available so that you can share that, and those costing allocations can be applied. And this is a screenshot of what that split costing questionnaire looks like. As you can see, those 3 questions are there. You can check yes or no. And you can also add a file that provides supporting documentation about the funding source. So This can be an email thread, a memo, Excel spreadsheet, anything like that. Anything that gives the finance team all the information they need to apply that costing allocation. So a few tips to keep in mind: work tags represent your account numbers that you're used to seeing in the old system. Um, Work tags come into play whenever you encounter the assign organization step of the hire business process. Um, Entering a work tag for a program, grant, or gift gives you the information you need to populate your organization assignments. However, work tags for program grants or gifts need to be removed in order for costing allocations to be applied. And so we'll jump over to Workday. Um, I will actually flip a different student this time. So this is what the assign organizations screen looks like. And as you can see, it's pulling in all of the information for the student worker that we have. If I had a grant or program um, uh, to apply, these are the fields that they could be entered um, into. But as I mentioned before, we want to leave those blank in order for costing allocations to be applied. So um, say I had a program that was 050. If I entered that there, it would update all of the other fields for me. Um, and then I could then go in and remove this program so that costing allocations could be applied later. But I'm going to change this back. Yeah, so that's what that screen looks like. Remember, leave these blank. You can fill in cost center, fund, and function as the required fields. And also, something to note, for student worker positions, the office supporting this position will always be beyond Barnard. A few other tips to keep in mind. So we have rec for hire comments. Rec for hire comments are the comment sections at the very bottom of most Workday screens. So you can see right here, here's a rec for hire comment section. Here, it's pretty easy to just type in something like an account number. And then that, once I hit submit, that gets routed to finance so that we can, so that they can see exactly where the account number is coming from. That can help to reduce the amount of email communication back and forth, keeps them from having to request information from you all. So in addition to uploading attachments where necessary on different business processes, you can use these rec for hire comments to communicate details to the finance team. And then availability versus availability and earliest hire dates. It's important to make sure that these are accurate when you're completing your job requisitions. I've seen a lot of scenarios where Someone may have guessed on an earliest hire date, or and sort of like lowballed it in a way that um, they selected a later date than they needed to. Um, what happens if you enter a earliest hire date that's a little too late for a student, is that they're not going to be able to enter time for when they started working. So it's important to confirm when a student is going to start work before you uh, enter the availability and earliest hire dates. Otherwise, that position won't be available for them to enter time um, until later. And then termination versus ending a job, sort of as I mentioned before, termination happens when a student is ending all of their jobs on campus, whether that's one position or multiple. And ending a job happens when you're just ending one position that a student holds. So they keep their primary position, whatever that may be. If their primary position is the one that needs to be ending, will have to switch their primary job and end the additional job. So this is what the onboarding checklist looks like. As you can see, we have the I-9 that needs to be completed, the W-4 that needs to be completed, state and local withholding elections for New York state taxes. Students have the option to add payment elections or sign up for direct deposit, as it is formally known. The WTPA is a form that is automatically generated by Workday and will be available in a student's inbox. That's the Wage Theft Protection Act form, and it just tells them what their wage is going to be. And then the New York Paid Family Leave Waiver can be completed and uploaded to Workday in the student's Workday inbox, but it is not required. Um, ID verification for the I-9 will be done in person, and so it's important that your students know that they need to come in to verify their I-9 in person in the Beyond Barnard office in Elliott Hall. Students will also need to ensure that their social security number is updated with the registrar. They have a slate form that that they use to collect that information. And so it's important for those students to, especially international students, to update their social security numbers as soon as they get it so that they can be paid. We can't pay anyone without a social security number. We also need to ensure that students' permanent addresses are updated with the registrar's office. That can also be updated with a slate form link. And then international students need to apply for a social security number if they do not already have one. There's a social security verification form that comes from International Student Services, and they will need their supervisor's signature on the center section of that form. So it's important that you all help them along by signing that form so that they can take it to the Social Security office. And then also it's important to note that international students may begin work once they've applied for a social security number, but until they've received that social security number, they can't be paid. So this is the payroll schedule. I can send this out to whoever might need it after the session, but it's important to note that Wednesdays are the student due dates this academic year. This is earlier than it used to be in Barnard Works, which is our former system. The supervisor due date is also earlier. Instead of being on Friday, I think it's now on Thursdays. And then the pay date comes the following Friday. we do not have a mass submission process as we did in the previous system. So it's important to note, very important to note, that if you do not approve your students' time on time, they will not get paid. And it's just as simple as that. I highly encourage setting up delegations in Workday. You can use the task manage my delegations in Workday to delegate someone to approve your student's time while you're out, if that's something that you need to do, or communicate with us in Beyond Barnard if you have any extenuating circumstances. But once payroll is processed, it's pretty difficult for us to loop anyone back into the payroll. And so it's very, very, very important that you approve your students' time on time so that they can be paid. So I will navigate now to the help section in Workday. So if you go to either view all apps or this global navigation on the left-hand side, you can access the help app. And the help center has lots of different categories, but the ones for student employment, the one for student employment is this second one, Beyond Barnard Student Employment. You can click view more to see all of the articles that we have available on student employment. And all of these articles will walk you through the different processes necessary for hiring students and getting them paid. Now, that was a lot of information. I would love to know what questions you all have in the last 15 minutes that we have together today. And so feel free to come off mute or drop a question in the chat. I'm going to check the chat now. Okay. Yes, the session is being recorded now. I forgot to start off with the recording, but I'll make sure to record the next session as well. Yes, and I can share the presentation. You can conduct interviews on your own if you would like. After you receive applications, the student's contact information will be available in the Workday platform. And so you can reach out to them, conduct interviews however you deem necessary, and then based on your interviews and who you're going to select, move them forward to the offer step. Yeah, but you're definitely allowed to interview candidates.
But Rashawn, I asked a question after Asante asked hers. So you're saying specifically that, let's say if I want to interview a finalist for a tutor and they have to be interviewed, I don't press the interview. I just press to move them on. I don't hit interview. I just leave them sitting in Workday until I manually invite them to be interviewed.
Yes.
Through my own email.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. How can we see the hourly rate a student is getting? I tried to rehire my student worker from last semester to a job I created a requisition for last week as a different title and higher rate, but it looks like the system rehired for the old position. So I am not exactly sure what you all see because our screens are a little bit different. I have a little more access than you all, but I will share my screen and show you all how I view compensation for students. So this is an example of a student that works for Beyond Barnard. If I go to the compensation tab, it'll show exactly what the hourly rate is for the student. I believe you all have this compensation tab. Um, so can anyone check on that and then let me know? It also might be under jobs. Oh no, this is not it. Just kidding. Um, there's a second way to get it on the back end, on my end of things, through the sequence of things, something I know you all don't have access to, but I'm pretty sure you all have access to this compensation tab, so it should be under there. Yes, and you can view that student's profile by any student's profile by searching them in the Workday search engine, and clicking on their profile when it comes up. Is it possible to access all of the archived information about old workers that we had in the old system? So what you'll need to do now is just reach out to us. We pulled a lot of data from the Barnard Works system, and including hire information, I think onboarding information, yeah, and there's a lot of data that we pulled. So if you reach out to Beyond Barnard with just the request of the information that you're trying to find, we can try to look that up for you and see what we have. Okay, any other questions?
Hi, this is Michelle Booker. I'm the new DA for computer science.
Hi, Michelle.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I will probably reach out a few times. This is all Greek to me, but one day at a time. Thank you for your training.
Yeah, no problem. Is there a way to double check a job is no longer posted as open? So if you, is this a job that you posted through a job requisition? Yes. So if you have the job rec ID, you can search that in the Workday search engine and hit enter. And actually, I'll share my screen so that I can point out a few things. So looking up Beyond Barnard's JR 1717 position, for instance, we can see that this is open. Like Workday will tell us straight up if it's open. But also, if, one thing I wanted to point out, I have in my saved categories, recruiting and staffing. Sometimes these categories don't come up automatically. You actually might have to pin them in your search. So if you go to configure search, you can look at all of these different categories and move different ones up or down to your to and from your saved categories, so that your search results populate well for what you're typically looking for. So I typically look for student records. I look for worker records. under people, I look for lots of tasks and reports, articles, and then recruiting and staffing for job requisitions. When I go to this job requisition, I can see under details that I have 3 total positions open. 1 unavailable because I have someone in a hire process right now. 1 filled because I've already hired someone. And then 1 available because I have 1 position that we're still trying to fill in our office. And that 1 available position, until I fill that, this job requisition is going to remain open. Workday will automatically close this job requisition once I fill that position. And I also have the option of closing the job requisition if I would like to before that position is filled. Like, so say we only need 2 office assistants at Beyond Barnard instead of 3, I could close this job requisition and shut that down for recruiting. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much. I couldn't see the recruiting and staffing, so I
Yeah,
was getting no results. So that changed everything, and I see it's filled. So thank you so much. Super helpful.
no problem. Ready.
Sorry, I have a question. I'm sorry, I had to step away really quick. Someone had to come to my office, but I'm not sure if anyone asked this already, but I have a student who just graduated. I understand I can't terminate her because, you know, maybe she had another job on campus or something. When I try to terminate her, it tells me that I'm not allowed to, but she graduated in May and she stopped working for me on the 19th of this month, on August 19th. But I don't see anywhere to end job. I keep hearing this, you can end a job, but when I go into her actions under her profile, I don't see anything that allows me to just end her job.
Yeah. So let's workshop this real quick. What's the student's name?
Sophia Capri, Capri.
Yes. So to clarify for everyone, can you pronounce your name for me?
Ida.
Ida. What Ida's running into is trying to end a job for a student, but the job that you're ending is their primary job. So Workday requires that everyone's primary job remain in place until the student is terminated, and you're only able to end a job for the additional jobs. And so in order to end this primary job, we would actually need to switch the primary job. I'm actually going to.
So if she has another job on campus, right? I
Mhm.
saw that she has another one, which is not her primary job. Just as being a student manager, right? Yes, I could do this task, I could perform this and maybe switch her job, but how do I know that she ended the other job? Like, I don't know anything about, like, I have 16 students right now, and they
Right.
can work at any other job on campus that they want to as well. So I know she graduated, so I know she's not here anymore. I know she's not working on campus. Technically, she should probably just be terminated, but I
Right.
don't know that if I am the right person to necessarily do that, I guess is what I'm asking.
Right. So you wouldn't be ending any job but your own. You don't have to do any end any job on your own unless you confirmed with another supervisor. But
Right.
even then, it could get sort of messy. The reason that you have to switch the primary job is so that you can only focus on the job that you're trying to end. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So,
Uh,
but I would be the right person to switch her primary job just so that I could end the one she had with me.
Yes. Yes. And so it has a reason that you have to select. You select primary job is ending. The effective date, what was her last day of work?
The 19th, August 19th was her last day.
So then I'll say the 20th. We'll make that effective. And then we'll just make this note taker position her primary. Review it all and then hit submit. And now you should be able to go in and
And that would be under actions.
yes. You can go to job change and then end job.
Okay, yeah, I don't get all of those options, but let me see if I get them now that you've changed it. Yeah, if I go to job change right now, all I see is add job.
Oh, interesting.
Now, at the bottom, if I go to, where was it that I actually found that I could terminate her? There's one of these menus. Like, I feel like some of the things that you're showing us are because you have elevated access, because there are certain things that I've never seen before, because I've looked. Where I just saw something that let me try to terminate her, but now I guess it went away because, oh, it was probably under job change. So now all I have under job change is add job. That's it.
Interesting. If you type end job in
Under
the Workday
search.
section, does anything come up?
If I type and nope.
Then I will have to consult with some folks today because y'all are supposed to have that. And I just don't have the bandwidth to end every student's
Yeah,
jobs
no,
when
of
they
course
end.
not.
So
I have another student also that one of the main reasons I think Sophia's case is just a little simpler. I have another student who decided not to come back to me this semester, but she still works on campus. So I would end her job here so that I don't become, her primary supervisor to approve her hours or anything, but I can't end her job here. And I know she's working in another department.
mhm.
So I want to make sure she gets paid for the work she's doing in that other department.
Yeah, let me confirm with the Workday support team today, what folks have access to. And then
I probably just have one last question, just because it's more of like an urgency thing for my current students. They all came back on the 22nd for training. They've been in training since last week. They're working this week during NSOP. But when I hired them last week, I hired them with start dates of the 22nd, but many of them are having problems because the pay period ended on Wednesday, the 24th. They can't enter their time between Monday and Wednesday. They can only enter time after Wednesday for the new pay period that's current. And I don't know how to help them. I just told them to email you guys.
yeah, the time period will unlock when payroll is done being processed for this current pay period that just ended. Sorry, not the current pay period that just ended, for the pay period that they're missing those hours for. So what happens, the pay period happens, and then time entry shuts down after Wednesday. So this past Wednesday would have been the last day that they could have entered time for that pay period. And then payroll processes for the upcoming payday. And then after payroll is done processing, that time period unlocks so that students can go back in and enter that time.
But they will be able to enter it since I hired them with a start date of Monday, the 22nd.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they'll be able to enter it on Wednesday of this week
Okay.
is when it'll unlock. Whether or not you're someone whose primary supervisor doesn't affect their hours approval for other jobs, correct, correct. If you're the supervisor, whatever job you're the supervisor of is the job that you're responsible for approving hours for. You won't even get their hours in your inbox to approve for their other jobs. You may get notifications that they have unapproved hours, but if those hours aren't tied to the position that you supervise directly, you won't have to take any action on that.
Only 4 more days.
All right, so that concludes our session today. If anybody has any questions further, feel free to reach out to me via email. We can chat it up. Hope you all have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.